The great hall of the Galactic Assembly Station was filled with beings from 47 different worlds. Some floated in the air. Some crawled on many legs. Some stood tall on 2 feet like the humans did. But today, all eyes were on the small human delegation that sat quietly in the corner captain. Tai-Ho Park adjusted his uniform and kept his face calm. Beside him, Lieutenant Unibeak watched the alien representatives with steady eyes. They had been here many times before. They knew what the aliens thought of them. "Look at the humans," whispered a Velaray merchant to his companion. The Valerie were tall, insect-like creatures with 4 arms and shiny black eyes. "They are so ... soft, so fragile. It is amazing they survived long enough to reach the stars." His companion made a clicking sound that meant laughter. "I heard they need to sleep for 8 hours every day." 8 hours. Can you imagine being so weak? Tai-Ho heard every word. His hearing was excellent. All human hearing was excellent. But he simply smiled and pretended not to notice. That was the rule. Always smile. Never let them see anything else. 30 years ago, when humans first made contact with the Galactic Union, they had been coached carefully. Every diplomat, every captain, every soldier who went into space received the same training. Be friendly. Be warm. Be harmless. Let them think whatever they want to think. And it had worked perfectly. The galaxy now believed that. Humans came from a paradise world, a safe planet with gentle weather and no dangerous animals. They thought humans were lucky creatures who had never known real danger. The aliens found humans adorable. They liked how humans formed emotional bonds with pets and plants and even machines. They thought it was cute how humans got cold easily and needed to wear extra clothes. Nobody asked questions. Nobody looked deeper. Ambassador Do Yan Quan walked to the center of the Great Hall. He was an older man with gray hair and a warm smile that never left his face. The aliens loved him. They called him the Friendly One and often invited him to their gatherings because he made everyone feel comfortable. Prince Do Yan said, opening his arms wide. "Thank you for allowing us to speak today. Humanity is grateful for the kindness this union has shown us." The Valori representative, Counselor Mirix, waved one of his 4 hands. "Of course, Ambassador, humans bring, how do you say it, good energy to our meetings. You are like pets that can talk." Some aliens laughed. Do Yan laughed too, though the smile never reached his eyes. In the corner, Yuna's hand tightened into a fist under the table. Tai-Ho placed his hand gently on her arm. A warning. She relaxed. The meeting continued. The council discussed trade routes and border disputes and scientific exchanges. Humans listened politely and said little. They had learned that saying little was best. The less they talked, the less the aliens paid attention to them. And that was exactly what humans wanted. After the meeting ended, Tai-Ho and Yuna walked through the station's long corridors. The walls were made of a clear material that showed the stars outside. It was beautiful, but neither of them was looking at the view. "Pets that can talk," Yuna said quietly. Her voice was flat. "Let them think what they want," Tai-Ho replied. "It keeps everyone safe." "Safe," Yuna repeated. There was something dark in her voice. "Yes, safe." They passed a group of young aliens who pointed at them and giggled. One of them made a gesture like petting a small animal. Tai-Ho smiled and waved at them. The aliens waved back, delighted by the friendly human. When they were alone again, Yuna spoke. "How long do we keep pretending?" "As long as we need to," Tai-Ho said. "The galaxy is not ready to know what we really are. Maybe they will never be ready." Back on Earth, children learned the true history. They learned about the ice ages and the great extinctions. They learned about the predators that humans had hunted until none were left. They learned about the wars that had killed millions and the weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. They learned that Earth was not a paradise. It was a death world, and humans had not survived by being gentle. But out here, among the stars, that history was buried, hidden, forgotten on purpose. The communication device on Tai-Ho's wrist buzzed. He looked at the message, and his face changed. For just a moment, the smile disappeared. What replaced it was something cold, Something ancient. What is it? Yuna asked. Distress signal, Taiho said. Mining colony on Kepler 7. The Dralith hegemony has attacked. They have taken 400 hostages. The Dralith were slavers. They operated outside Union space and took whoever they wanted. The Union had never been able to stop them. The Union had never really tried. How many humans? Yuna asked. Taiho's jaw tightened. 12. Including Hannah. Hannah Kwan, Ambassador Do-Yoon's daughter. She was 24 years old and worked as a teacher on the colony. She had her father's smile. Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "What do we do?" Taiho looked at her. The warm, friendly captain was gone. In his place stood something else. Something that the galaxy had never seen and never wanted to see. "We go get our people back," he said. They walked toward the docking bay where their ship waited. As they walked, other aliens moved out of their way without knowing why. Something in the air had changed. Something in the way the humans moved was different. The aliens could not explain it, but they felt it in their bones. Fear, an old fear. A fear that their ancestors had known long ago, when predators walked their worlds. A fear they had forgotten because they had been safe for so long. But the humans remembered. Humans always remembered. And somewhere deep inside, in a place that words could not reach, the aliens began to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. They had looked at the smiling faces and the warm handshakes and the gentle voices. They had seen what humans wanted them to see. They had never thought to ask what was hiding underneath. The emergency council meeting began within the hour. Representatives from every species filled the great hall, their voices loud and angry. The Dralith had sent a message. They wanted 3 star systems in exchange for the hostages. If the Union refused, the hostages would die. All 400 of them. Counselor Mirix stood at the center of the hall, his forearms waving as he spoke. We must negotiate. The Dralith are dangerous. We cannot risk a war over one small colony. High Arbiter Thene, the ancient leader of the Chorus species, nodded slowly. The Chorus were peaceful beings who had not fought a war in 10,000 years. Violence is never the answer. We will talk to them. We will find a peaceful solution. The other representatives agreed. Negotiation, diplomacy. Peace in the corner. Captain Taiho stood up. The hall went quiet. Humans rarely spoke in council meetings. When they did, it was usually to agree with whatever the others had decided. The human delegation requests permission to send a team to the colony, Taiho said. His voice was calm and polite. We would like to observe the situation. Mirix made a clicking sound. Observe? What would you observe, Captain? You have no military. You have no weapons. What exactly do you think you can do? Some aliens laughed. A few made the petting gesture again. We simply want to assess the situation, Taiho said. Perhaps we can find information that will help with the negotiations. High Arbiter Thene tilted his head. I see no harm in this. Let the humans observe. It will keep them busy while we handle the real work. The council voted. Permission was granted. Nobody took it seriously. 2 hours later, Taiho's ship left the station. On board were 8 humans, the crew of the Olive Branch, and 4 additional members who had arrived quietly from another ship. Sergeant Wanjin Choi was the leader of the new arrivals. He was a short man with thick shoulders and hands that had seen hard work. His face showed no expression at all. The aliens would have called him boring. They would have been wrong. In the cargo bay, Wanjin opened a sealed crate. Inside were things that the galaxy had never seen. Long metal tubes with handles and triggers, small round objects with pins. Blades of different sizes, some curved, some straight. Kinetic rifles, Wanjin said, handing one to each team member. Fires metal at high speed. No energy signature. Silent if we use the suppressors. Yuna picked up one of the blades and tested its edge. Her eyes were empty and calm, like deep water. How many Dralith at the outpost? About 80, Wanjun replied. Plus Commander Rethok. He is their leader. 8 against 80, said another team member, a young woman named Jimin. She did not sound worried. She sounded like she was counting supplies for a trip. Taiho entered the cargo bay. He had removed his captain's uniform. Underneath, he wore simple black clothes that fit close to his body. The other team members were dressed the same way. The Dralith are pursuit predators, Taiho said. They evolved to chase their prey across open ground. They have good eyes and strong legs. In a straight fight on flat land, they would beat us. He paused and looked at his team. But we are not going to fight them on flat land. We are going to hunt them in the dark, in the cold, in the places where they cannot see and cannot run. We are going to remind them what it feels like to be prey. Nobody smiled. Nobody needed to. Yuna stepped forward and began removing her outer shirt. Underneath, her arms and shoulders were covered in scars, long ones, short ones. Some from blades, some from burns. She had collected them over 12 years in Earth's Special Warfare Command before joining the Diplomatic Corps. The Diplomatic Corps, that was a joke that only humans understood. Every human who went into space had training, real training, not the kind the aliens imagined. Rules of engagement, Taiho continued. No prisoners. No witnesses. When we are done, the galaxy will think a ghost attacked that outpost. Wanjin loaded his rifle with a soft click. And if the council finds out what we really are? Taiho was quiet for a moment. Then he said, they took Hannah. They took our people. I do not care what the council thinks anymore. They want to see humans as harmless pets? Fine. Let them keep thinking that. But the Dralith will learn the truth tonight. The ship flew through the darkness of space. Behind them, the Galactic Assembly Station grew smaller and smaller until it was just another light among the stars. On the station, the council continued their discussions about negotiation. They talked about what words to use and what offers to make. They believed they were handling this situation. They believed they were in control. They had no idea what was coming. In the cargo bay, Wanjin pulled up a display showing Dralith anatomy. He pointed to the joints, the throat, the soft spots between the armored plates of their skin. They think they are predators, he said quietly. They have never met something that hunts predators. Jimin checked her equipment one final time. How cold is it on Kepler 7b? -40, Yuna replied. Good, Jimin said. They will be slow. We will not. Humans had survived ice ages. Humans had crossed frozen continents on foot. Humans had built civilizations in places where nothing should live. The cold was not their enemy. It was their oldest friend. The ship's computer announced that they would arrive in 6 hours. Taiho sat down and closed his eyes. Around him, his team did the same. They would sleep now. They would rest their bodies and sharpen their minds. When they woke, they would not be diplomats anymore. They would be what they had always been. Underneath the smiles and the handshakes and the kind words, they would be human, and God help anyone who stood between them and their people. The frozen moon of Kepler 7b was a dead place. No plants grew there. No animals lived there. The only sounds were the wind and the cracking of ice under the endless cold. The temperature was 40 degrees below zero. The night would last for another 20 hours. The Dralith outpost sat in a valley between two frozen mountains. It was an ugly building made of dark metal, built for function and not for beauty. Lights glowed in the windows and guards walked slowly around the walls. They were not worried. No one had ever attacked a Dralith outpost before. No one was stupid enough to try. Inside the prison section, 400 hostages waited in the cold. They had been given thin blankets and little food. Most of them were aliens from the mining colony. They sat in silence, too afraid to speak. But in one corner, 12 humans sat together. They did not look afraid. They looked like they were waiting for something. Hannah Kwan was the youngest of them. She had her father's kind face, but her mother's sharp eyes. Next to her sat Yunji Seo, the colony's doctor. Yunji had kept everyone alive so far, treating injuries with whatever she could find. How long do we wait? Yunji whispered. Hannah looked at the small window high on the wall. Through it, she could see only darkness and falling snow. Not long now. How do you know? Hannah smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. Because we are pack animals, Yoonji. We do not leave our own behind. Ever. 30 kilometers away, the human team moved through the frozen wasteland. They walked in single file, their bodies bent against the wind. The cold cut through their clothes and burned their skin. Any alien would have died in minutes out here. The humans kept walking. Wanzhen led the way, his eyes scanning the white emptiness ahead. Behind him came Taiho, then Yuna, then the others. They did not speak. They did not need to. They had trained together for years. They knew what each other was thinking just by watching how they moved. After 4 hours of walking, they reached the edge of the valley. Below them, the outpost glowed in the darkness. Wanzhen raised his hand and everyone stopped. 83 guards, he said quietly, looking through a small viewing device. 12 on the walls. 20 patrolling inside. The rest are in the barracks. Commander Rethok, Taiho asked. Command center? Top floor. He has not left all day. Yuna studied the outpost with cold eyes. We go in from the west. The wind is blowing that direction. It will cover our sound and our smell. Taiho nodded. Teams of 2. Clear the walls first, then move inside. No guns until we reach the barracks. Knives only. The team split up and began moving down the mountain. They made no sound. Their footsteps left no marks in the snow. If anyone had been watching, they would have seen nothing but shadows moving in the darkness. The first guard died without knowing he was in danger. He was standing at his post, looking out at the frozen plain, when a hand covered his mouth and a blade slid between his armor plates. He was dead before he could make a sound. Wanzhen lowered his body gently to the ground and moved to the next position. One by one, the wall guards disappeared. The guards inside the outpost noticed nothing. Their communication devices stayed silent. Everything seemed normal. In the command center, Commander Rethok was eating his dinner. He was a large Dralith with dark red scales and 3 eyes that gleamed with cruel intelligence. He had raided hundreds of colonies and taken thousands of slaves. No one had ever stopped him. He saw no reason why tonight would be different. His communication device buzzed. Commander Guard Post 7 is not responding. Rethok frowned. Send someone to check. 5 minutes later, the device buzzed again. Commander, we cannot find the guard at Post 7 or Post 8 or Post 9. Oh, Rethok was worried. He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the outpost looked peaceful. The snow was falling. The lights were glowing. Nothing seemed wrong, but something felt wrong. Send a full patrol to the west wall, he ordered. Now, the patrol never came back. Inside the barracks, Dralith soldiers were playing games and talking when the lights went out. For a moment, there was only darkness. Then the screaming started. Flashes of gunfire lit up the room. Bodies fell. By the time anyone thought to run, there was nowhere to run to. Wanzhen moved through the building like smoke. He did not hurry. He did not panic. He simply killed everything in his path with the efficiency of a machine. Behind him, Jimin and the others did the same. In the prison section, the hostages heard the distant sounds of chaos. The alien prisoners cried out in fear. They thought the Dralith were killing them. But the humans knew better. Hannah stood up and walked to the door of the cell. She pressed her ear against the metal and listened. Footsteps, getting closer. Then silence. The door opened. Taiho stood in the doorway. His black clothes were stained with blood, but none of it was his. Behind him, Yuna was wiping her blade clean on a dead guard's uniform. Miss Kwan, Taiho said calmly. Your father sent us. Anna smiled. A real smile this time. Took you long enough. In the command center, Rethok was watching the security cameras. One by one, the screens turned to static. He saw glimpses of his soldiers falling. He saw shapes moving in the shadows. And then he saw a face looking directly into one of the cameras. It was a human face, calm, expressionless, covered in Dralith blood. The human smiled at him. Then the screen went dark. Rithok grabbed his communication device and opened a channel to the Galactic Council. His hands were shaking. His 3 eyes were wide with terror. "This is Commander Rithok of the Dralith Hegemony," he said, his voice breaking. "I need to speak to the Council. Now. Right now." When the connection opened, he screamed into the device. "What are these things you sent? What are humans? What are they?" The Council had no answer for him, but they would find out soon enough. The great hall of the Galactic Assembly was silent. Every representative sat frozen in their seats, staring at the massive screen that covered the far wall. On the screen, Commander Rithok's face was twisted with fear. Behind him, they could see the flashing lights of his command center's alarm system. "Please," Rithok begged. "Tell me what they are. Tell me how to stop them." Counselor Mirix leaned forward. His 4 hands gripped the edge of his table. "What do you mean?" "We sent an observation team. 8 humans. They were supposed to watch and report back." "Watch." Rithok laughed, but it was a broken sound. "They are not watching. They are hunting. They killed 60 of my soldiers in less than 1 hour. I have seen no bodies. I have heard no screams. My people just ... disappear." "Hi, Arbiter." Thien turned to the human representative in the room. Sunho Ryu was a young man who worked as a cultural attaché. He had a gentle face and soft voice. The aliens had always liked him because he seemed so harmless. "What is happening?" Thien demanded. "What did you send to that outpost?" Sunho was quiet for a moment. Then he said, very calmly, "We sent humans." "Humans cannot do this," Mirix said. "Humans are peaceful. Humans are weak. We have studied your species for 30 years. You studied what we showed you," Sunho replied. "Nothing more." On the screen, Rithok suddenly looked up. His 3 eyes went wide. "They are here," he whispered. "They are outside my door." The council watched in silence as Rithok pulled out a weapon and pointed it at the door. His hands were shaking so badly that he could barely hold it straight. The door opened. A human walked in. It was Wanjin. He was covered in blood from head to foot. His rifle hung at his side, but he did not raise it. He simply walked toward Rithok like a man taking a morning stroll. Rithok fired. The shot hit Wanjin in the shoulder. He stumbled slightly. Then he kept walking. Rithok fired again. And again, one shot hit Wanjun in the leg. Another missed completely. Wanja did not stop. He did not even seem to feel the pain. His face showed nothing at all. "What are you?" Rithok screamed. Wanjin reached him. He grabbed the weapon and pulled it away like taking a toy from a child. Then he leaned in close and spoke in a voice so quiet that the council barely heard it. "You should not have touched our people." The screen went black. In the great hall, no one moved. No one spoke. The silence was so heavy that it felt like a physical weight pressing down on everyone. Finally, Valori representative found his voice. "This is impossible. Humans do not. They cannot." "Again," Sunho said. He stood up from his seat and walked to the center of the hall. Every eye followed him. "We always could. We simply chose not to." Chose. "Hi," Arbiter Thien's voice was barely a whisper. Sunho looked around the room at the terrified faces. Beings who had pitied humans for 30 years. Beings who had laughed at them and called them pets. Beings who had never once wondered why humans smiled so much. "Duh. Let me tell you about Earth," Sunho said. "Our home world. You thought it was a paradise because that is what we told you? You thought we evolved without predators because we seemed so soft. You were wrong." He began to pace slowly across the floor. "Earth is what scientists call a death world. The gravity is high. The weather is extreme. The animals are dangerous. When we were young, we had to fight every day just to survive. We fought predators with teeth as long as my arm. We fought each other. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times." He stopped and turned to face the council. "We learned things on Earth that no other species has learned. We learned to hunt. Not just for food, but for survival. We became so good at it that we drove other predators to extinction. We hunted things that were bigger than us, faster than us, stronger than us. And we won. Every time. Mirix made a small sound of disbelief. Then why? Why did you pretend to be weak? Because we also learned something else, Sunho said. We learned that the best hunters do not show their teeth. They smile. They act friendly. They let the prey come close before they strike. He looked at the blank screen where Rethak's face had been. You thought our kindness was weakness? You thought our patience was fear? You were wrong. Our kindness is a choice. We make it because we remember what we used to be. We remember the blood and the death and the endless hunting. We do not want to be that anymore. We came to the stars looking for friends, not prey. He paused. But when you take our people, when you hurt our pack, ... we remember everything. And then we stop pretending. The screen flickered back to life. It showed the outpost from above. The human team was walking out of the main building. Behind them came 400 hostages, all alive, all safe. The Dralith guards lay scattered on the ground like fallen leaves. 8 humans. 83 Dralith. It had not been a fight. It had been a harvest. Why UNA walked at the front of the group? Her face was still calm. Her clothes were torn and stained, but she moved like she was walking through a garden on a sunny day. Beside her, Taiho carried a wounded hostage on his back. His shoulder was bleeding, but he did not seem to notice. A medical ship from the Union was landing nearby. Aliens in rescue uniforms ran toward the hostages, ready to help. They stopped when they saw the humans. They stopped and stared. Taiho set down the wounded hostage and walked toward the rescue team. He held out his hand for a handshake, the same gesture humans always used. "Thank you for coming," he said. His voice was warm and friendly, just like always. His face was covered in blood. The alien closest to him fainted in the Great Hall. The Vellery representative made a small choking sound and collapsed against his table. He was not the only one. Across the room, beings who had lived for centuries without knowing fear were learning it for the first time. Sunho watched them with sad eyes. He had not wanted this. None of the humans had wanted this. But some lessons could only be taught in blood. "We are not your enemies," he said quietly. "We never were. But now you know what we are, and you will never forget." The screen showed the human team boarding their ship. In a few hours, they would return to the station. They would wash off the blood and put on their uniforms and smile their warm smiles again. But nothing would ever be the same. 1 month had passed since the night on Kepler 7b. In that time, Galaxy had changed more than it had in 1,000 years. The Dralith hegemony had sued for peace on the 3rd day. They released all their slaves. They returned all their stolen territory. They agreed to pay whatever the Union demanded. The only thing they asked for in return was a promise. No human ships would ever enter their space. The Union agreed. It was a small price to pay. But the real changes were happening in the minds of every being in the galaxy. For 30 years, they had believed one thing about humans. Now they believed something very different. Scholars began studying Earth's history for the first time. What they found kept them awake at night. They found records of wars that killed millions. They found weapons that could burn cities to ash in seconds. They found stories of humans hunting animals 10 times their size with nothing but sharpened sticks. A Vellery scientist published a paper called Earth, the Death World Theory Confirmed. It spread across the galaxy in days. Everyone read it. Everyone was horrified. Other species began to look at human behavior in a new way. Small things that had seemed cute or strange now seemed terrifying. Humans needed sleep, because their bodies were constantly repairing damage. Their muscles tore and rebuilt every time they exercised, making them stronger. Their brains processed the violence of the day while they dreamed. Humans formed bonds with animals because they had spent thousands of years domesticating predators. They had taken wolves and turned them into dogs. They had made monsters into pets because they could. Humans smiled to show their teeth. It was a threat display that they had turned into a greeting. Every time a human smiled at an alien, they were showing them exactly how they could bite. On the Galactic Assembly Station, Captain Taiho had become the most watched being in existence. Aliens moved out of his way when he walked through the corridors. They watched him from safe distances, trying to understand how this quiet, friendly man had killed so many Dralith without breaking a sweat. Taiho noticed the fear in their eyes. It made him sad, but he understood. He had grown up with the weight of human history on his shoulders. He knew what his species was capable of. He had hoped the galaxy would never have to learn. In her quarters, Hannah was recovering. The time as a hostage had left marks on her, not all of them visible. Her father visited every day, holding her hand and telling her stories like he did when she was a child. He did not talk about what had happened. Neither did she. Some things did not need words. A week after returning to the station, Ambassador Do-Yan requested permission to address the full council. Permission was granted immediately. No one refused humans anything anymore. He stood in the center of the Great Hall, looking older and more tired than before. But his voice was steady when he spoke. 30 years ago, we came to the stars, hoping to find friends. We had spent our whole history fighting each other. We were tired of blood. We were tired of death. We wanted peace more than anything else in the universe. We looked around the room at the silent faces. We showed you our gentle side because it was real. Our kindness was not a trick. Our warmth was not a mask. We truly wanted to be the friendly species you thought we were. We buried our fangs. We filed down our claws. We tried to become something better than what evolution had made us. His voice grew harder. You took our people, and when you did that, you reminded us of what we really are. We are not pets. We are not prey. We are predators who chose to be kind. That choice is the hardest thing we have ever done. It goes against every instinct in our blood. He stepped forward. Let this be understood by everyone in this hall. Our kindness is a gift. It is not a weakness. Mistake one for the other, and you will meet the species we used to be. The species we still are, underneath the smiles. I promise you, you do not want to meet that species. He looked at Counselor Mirix, who had once called humans pets. We offer you our friendship again. True friendship between equals. Take it or leave it. But never again believe that you can take from us without consequence. We protect our pack. We always have. We always will. The hall was silent for a long time after he finished. Then, one by one, the representatives began to stand. It was not applause. It was acknowledgement. They were showing respect to an equal for the first time. Mirix was the last to stand. His 4 hands hung at his sides, and his black eyes were unreadable. But he bowed his head slightly toward Do-Yan. A Valori sign of deep respect, Do-Yan bowed back. Later that night, Taiho sat alone in a small bar on the station. He was drinking something blue and sweet, a local specialty. The bar was empty. People did not want to be near him anymore. Then a small figure approached his table. It was an alien child, no older than 6 or 7 in human years. The child's parents stood far behind, eyes wide with fear. Reaching out as if to pull the child back, the child looked at Taiho with curious eyes. Are you a human? It asked. Yes, Taiho said. My mother says humans are dangerous. We can be, Taiho agreed. The child thought about this. But you saved those people on the frozen moon. The bad ones took them, and you brought them back. Taiho smiled. A real smile, warm and gentle. Yes, we did. So you were dangerous, but also good? Taiho considered the question. It was simple, the way children's questions often were. And like most simple questions, it touched on something deep. We try to be good, he said finally. Being dangerous is easy. Being good is hard, but we try. The child nodded, satisfied with this answer. Then it reached into its pocket and pulled out a small candy wrapped in bright paper. For you, it said. Because you helped. Taiho took the candy. His eyes were suddenly wet, though he did not know why. Thank you, he said. The child smiled and ran back to its parent. The parent grabbed it and hurried away, looking over their shoulder with frightened eyes. But the child waved at Taiho as they left. and Tai-Ho waved back. He sat alone for a long time after that, turning the small candy over in his hands. Such a small thing. Such a simple gesture, but it meant everything. The galaxy now knew what humans were. They had seen the teeth behind the smile, but this child had also seen something else. Something just as true. Humans were predators who had chosen to be kind. And that choice, that daily struggle against their own nature, was what made them special, not the killing. The choosing Tai-Ho put the candy in his pocket and walked out of the bar. In the corridor, aliens stepped aside to let him pass, but one or two nodded at him as he went by. It was a start. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. But perhaps in time they would learn an even more important one, that the most dangerous creature in the universe is not the one with the biggest claws. It was the one with the strength to be gentle.